The crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the tallest tower, the Galactic Council met as they had for 1,000 years. 3 species ruled this part of the galaxy, and today they gathered to discuss old mysteries. Hyunwoo walked into the Great Hall with careful steps. His blue skin shimmered in the light, and his large black eyes saw more than most beings could imagine. As a Vellani, he could read thoughts and feel emotions from across the room. Today, those emotions were not pleasant. The Corvex delegate, Bora, sat at her metal desk, her 6 arms working on 3 different computers at once. Her people had built most of the technology that kept the galaxy running. Silver wires ran through her gray skin, connecting her directly to the ship's main computer. She looked up at Hyunwoo with her red mechanical eyes and made a sound like grinding gears. "More old stories, Vellani?" Bora asked. "We have real problems to discuss. Trade routes, mining rights, border disputes. Why waste time on ancient nonsense?" "General." Taemin stood near the window, his massive frame blocking some of the light. The Thurok warrior was 3 meters tall, covered in thick brown scales that could stop most weapons. His people had conquered dozens of worlds through pure strength and military skill. He turned to face Hyunwoo, showing teeth that could crush metal. "The Vellani bring us fairy tales again," Taemin said with a voice like rolling thunder. "Do they have nothing better to do than dig through old computer files?" Hyunwoo placed a small device on the central table. Blue light filled the room, and symbols appeared in the air above them. The writing was strange, unlike anything from the 3 known civilizations. "These are not fairy tales," Hyunwoo said quietly. "We found these records in the old archives on 17 different worlds. They all speak of the same thing, the same people." The symbols changed, showing images of strange creatures. They walked on 2 legs like the Thurok, but they were smaller and had no scales. They had hair on their heads and skin that came in different colors. The images showed them building cities, flying primitive ships, and doing impossible things. "Humans," Hyunwoo said. "That is what they called themselves." Bora made her grinding sound again, which meant she was laughing. "Look at them! No armor plating, no computer implants, no psychic abilities. How could such weak creatures survive in space?" The images changed again. They showed the strange beings fighting wars with weapons that exploded like small suns. They showed them living in environments that would kill any other species. They showed them reaching toward the stars with ships powered by controlled explosions. According to these records, Hyunwoo continued, they split the smallest parts of matter to create energy. They survived on worlds with deadly radiation. They fought wars across entire continents and still managed to reach space. Taemin stepped closer to the display. "Impossible. No species could be that violent and still develop space travel. They would destroy themselves first." "Perhaps they did," Hyunwoo said. "The record stopped suddenly about 500 years ago. But before they stopped, they showed something interesting. New images appeared. They showed massive ships unlike anything the 3 species had ever built. The designs were crude, but somehow elegant. They looked like they were made for long journeys through dangerous space." "Star maps," Hyunwoo said. "These humans mapped routes through hyperspace that we have never found. They reached systems we thought were impossible to navigate." Bora's red eyes flickered as she processed the information. "The navigation data makes no sense. These routes go through areas where space itself is unstable. No ship could survive those gravitational fields." Yet the records show they did survive, Hyunwoo replied. More than survive. They thrived. The Vellani ambassador felt something in the room change. The emotions of his fellow delegates shifted from amusement to something else. Not quite fear, but concern. Why bring this to us now? Taemin asked. If these humans existed, they are clearly gone. What does it matter? Hyunwoo closed his large black eyes and reached out with his mind. For weeks, the Vellani had been feeling something strange at the edge of their collective consciousness. It was like a whisper in a language they did not know. Something is moving in the outer rim, he said. Our long-range telepaths have been sensing minds that do not belong to any known species, thoughts that feel familiar. Familiar how? Bora asked, her mechanical fingers clicking against her desk. Like the emotional patterns in these records, Hyunwoo said. Curious, determined, stubborn beyond all reason. Taemin laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. You think these mythical humans are still alive, after 500 years of silence? I think we should be careful about dismissing possibilities, Hyunwoo said. The universe is vast. There are many places to hide. Bora stood up, her 6 arms folding across her chest. This is waste of time. Old stories about dead people. We have real threats to worry about. Pirate fleets, resource shortages, political disputes. Yes, Taemin agreed. Let the dead stay dead. If these humans ever existed, they are gone now. Probably destroyed themselves with their own weapons, just like the records suggest. Hyunwoo gathered his data device and prepared to leave. He had expected this reaction. The 3 species had ruled the galaxy for so long that they could not imagine anything else existing beyond their knowledge. Perhaps you are right, he said. Perhaps they are just myths. But as he walked out of the crystal tower, Hyunwoo felt the strange whispers in his mind growing stronger. Something was coming from the dark spaces between stars. Something that had been waiting and watching and growing stronger. The other delegates returned to their normal business, discussing trade agreements and territory disputes. They forgot about the strange records and the impossible stories of creatures called humans. They would remember soon enough. In the depths of space, far beyond the edge of known civilization, sensors that had been silent for centuries began to wake up. Ancient computers started running calculations. Ships that had been hidden in the dark began to move. The myths were about to become real. The mining world Kepler 442b was not a pleasant place to work. The air was thin, the gravity was heavy, and the ground was full of valuable metals that the Corvex needed for their computers. Do-yoon had been working there for 3 years, leading excavation teams deeper into the planet's crust. He was a good engineer, even for a Corvex. His silver skin was covered with more computer implants than most of his people. Wires ran from his brain to his hands, letting him control dozens of mining machines at once. His red mechanical eyes could see through rock and metal to find the best places to dig. On this particular day, Do-yoon's team was digging deeper than they had ever gone before. The scanners had found something strange buried under kilometers of rock and dirt. It was big, made of metal, and it did not match anything in their databases. Careful with the plasma cutters, Do-yoon told his workers through the computer link in his brain. We do not know what we are dealing with. The excavation took 6 hours. When they finally broke through the last layer of rock, Do-yoon saw something that made his mechanical eyes flicker with confusion. It was a structure, clearly built by intelligent beings, but the design was completely wrong. The walls were too straight, the angles were too sharp, Everything was built in squares and rectangles, not the flowing curves that the Volani preferred or the complex geometrics that the Corvex used. It definitely was not the brutal, practical style of Thurok architecture. Report to Supervisor Ji Hai. Immediately, Do-yoon said to his communication implant. We have found something unusual. Ji-hee arrived on the next transport ship. She was older than Do-yoon, with more implants and better computers wired into her brain. When she saw the structure, her red eyes dimmed for a moment as she processed the information. This is not from any known civilization, she said. The construction methods are primitive but effective. The materials are common metals, but they are put together in ways we have never seen. They sent exploration robots into the structure first. The robots found rooms filled with strange furniture and equipment. Everything was built for creatures about 2 meters tall who walked on 2 legs. There were no signs of computer implants or advanced technology integration. Whoever built this used separate tools instead of built-in systems, Ji-hai observed. How inefficient. But when they found the data cores, everything changed. The cores were crewed by Corvex standards, using magnetic storage instead of quantum matrices. But when Do-yoon connected them to his analysis computer, the information they contained made him dizzy with shock. Star maps, thousands of them, showing routes through hyperspace that no one had ever discovered. The paths went through areas that the 3 species had marked as impossible to navigate. Gravitational storms, quantum fields, regions where space itself was unstable. Send message to Galactic Council, Ji-hai said, her voice tight with concern. Priority 1. We need xenoarchaeologist immediately. Dr. Nari arrived 2 days later. She was Volani with the typical blue skin and large black eyes of her people. But she was different from most Volani because she studied dead civilizations instead of living minds. When Nari entered the structure, she immediately stopped walking. Her psychic abilities could sense things that machines could not detect. Emotions that had been imprinted in the walls and floors by years of occupation. There are echoes here, she said softly. Strong ones. Whoever lived here had very powerful feelings. Do-yoon watched as the Volani scientist closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Her face changed as she felt the emotional imprints left behind by the structure's builders. Curiosity, she said. So much curiosity. They wanted to know everything about everything, and determination. I have never felt determination this strong. They would not give up, no matter what happened to them. What else? Ji-hai asked. Nari moved deeper into the structure, her hands touching the walls. Loneliness. They were far from home, but also excitement. They loved being here, even though they missed their families. They loved exploring new places. The team spent weeks studying the structure. They found personal belongings, work equipment, and more data cores. Slowly, they began to piece together the story of who had built this place. Humans, Nari said one day as she studied translated text files. They called themselves humans. This was one of their colony bases. Colony? Do-yoon asked. How many colonies did they have? Nari looked at the star maps again. According to these records, dozens, maybe hundreds. They spread out across this entire sector of the galaxy. Ji-hai processed this information through her computer implants. That is impossible. We have explored this sector thoroughly. There are no human colonies. No, Nari said quietly. There are no human colonies now, but there were 500 years ago. The implications hit them all at the same time. The strange creatures from Hyunwoo's ancient records had been real. They had reached the stars. They had built colonies across dozens of worlds. And then they had vanished. What happened to them? Du-Yun asked. Nari touched one of the walls again, feeling for more emotional echoes. What she found made her step back in shock. They left, she said. All of them. At the same time. It was not gradual. It was sudden and organized. Like they were following orders. Orders from who? Ji-hai asked. I do not know. But the emotions I am sensing, they were not running away from something. They were going toward something. They had a plan. Du-Yun connected to the base's main computer and sent a full report to the Galactic Council. Within hours, he received orders to seal the site and wait for a full investigation team. But it was too late. Word had already started spreading through the Corvex computer networks. Engineers and scientists across the galaxy began looking for similar structures on their own worlds. They found them, dozens of them, all abandoned at the same time, all showing signs of organized evacuation rather than destruction or death. The humans had not died out. They had left. All of them. Together. The question was, where had they gone? And more importantly, why were they starting to come back? Because in the deep space monitoring stations at the edge of known territory, sensors were beginning to detect something moving in the void, something big, something that was heading toward the core worlds with purpose and determination, something that felt very much like the emotional echoes Nari had found in the abandoned human colony. The myths were not just real, they were coming home. Captain Min-ho stood on the bridge of his warship and stared at the empty space ahead. For a Thurok warrior, he was considered small, only 2.5 meters tall. But his brown scales were thick and scarred from many battles, and his crew respected him for his quick thinking rather than his size. The Thurok patrol fleet was stationed at the edge of known space, watching for pirates and smugglers. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Min-ho had been commanding border patrols for 15 years, and he thought he had seen everything the galaxy could throw at him. He was wrong. Captain, called Hae-in from the communication station. She was young for a Thurok, with bright green scales that had not yet been dulled by battle scars. I am getting strange readings on the long-range sensors. Min-ho walked over to her station, his heavy footsteps echoing through the bridge. What kind of readings? Gravitational disturbances, Hae-in said, her clawed fingers dancing over the control panel. Something big is moving through hyperspace. Very big. The main screen lit up with sensor data. Min-ho studied the information, his small black eyes narrowing with concentration. In his years of service, he had tracked everything from single fighter ships to massive cargo haulers. This was different. How big? He asked. Hae-in checked her instruments again. At least 1,000 contacts, sir. Maybe more. They are moving in perfect formation through hyperspace. Pirates do not travel in formations that large, Min-ho said. And cargo ships do not move together unless they are part of a trade convoy. Check the registration databases. Hae-in's fingers flew over her controls. After a few minutes, she looked up with confusion on her scaled face. No matches, sir. The energy signatures do not correspond to any known ship types. Min-ho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In 15 years of border patrol, he had never encountered ships that were not in the databases. Every civilization in the galaxy registered their vessels for safety and trade purposes. Try to intercept their communications, he ordered. Maybe we can find out who they are. The communications array was the most powerful on any Thurok ship. It could pick up signals from across several star systems. But for the next hour, Hay-In found nothing but empty space noise. Then everything changed. "Contact!" Hay-In shouted. "Multiple signals coming through hyperspace. They are not using standard communication protocols." The speakers crackled with static, and then voices came through. But they were speaking in a language that the translation computers could not understand. The words were harsh and quick, full of sounds that no known species made. "Analysis," Minho commanded. "Working, sir." Hay-In connected the signals to the ship's main computer. "The translation matrix is having trouble. The language structure is completely unknown. But I am getting some partial matches." The speakers crackled again, and this time some words came through clearly. "Terra Command, Colonial Fleet 7, Homecoming Protocol." Minho felt his scales prickle with unease. Those words meant nothing to him, but something about the tone of the voices made him nervous. They sounded organized, professional, military. "Sir," Hay-In said quietly, "I think these are warships." Before Minho could respond, the long-range sensors screamed an alarm. The gravitational disturbances were getting stronger. Whatever was moving through hyperspace was getting closer. "All ships, battle stations," Minho ordered through the fleet communication system. "Unknown contacts approaching. Prepare for possible hostile action." The Thurok patrol fleet was small but powerful. 5 warships, each one capable of destroying a pirate base single-handedly. Minho had confidence in his ships and his crews, but as the sensor readings continued to climb, that confidence began to fade. 2,000 contacts now, sir," Hay-In reported. "Still in perfect formation. Still approaching." "Open a communication channel," Minho said. "Standard first contact protocols." Hay-In worked at her station for several minutes. "Channel open, sir." Minho stepped forward and spoke clearly into the communication system. "Unknown fleet, this is Captain Minho of the Thurok Border Patrol. You are entering controlled space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." For a long moment there was only silence. Then the speakers crackled to life with a single voice speaking in broken galactic standard. "Thurok vessel," the voice said. The accent was strange, like someone learning the language from old recordings. "This is Admiral Jun Suk of the Human Colonial Fleet. We are returning home. Do not interfere." Human. The word hit Minho like a physical blow. He had heard the reports from the Galactic Council about the ancient records and abandoned colonies, but those had seemed like distant mysteries, not immediate threats. "Admiral Jun Suk," Minho replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "This sector is under Galactic Council jurisdiction. All vessels must submit to inspection and registration before entering core systems." The response came quickly, and this time the voice sounded amused. "Galactic Council? How interesting. We will discuss this when we arrive." "Arrive where?" Minho asked. "Home," Admiral Junsuk said simply. "We are going home." The communication channel went silent. Minho stared at the sensor readings, watching as more and more contacts appeared. On the screen, 3,000 ships, 4,000, 5,000, sir, Hay-In whispered. "I am reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. These ships are using technology we have never seen before." Minho made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Send emergency transmission to Galactic Council headquarters. Priority Alpha. Unknown fleet of massive size approaching core systems. Possible first contact situation. Species identifies as human. As He-In sent the message, the sensors detected something that made Min-Ho's blood run cold. The unknown fleet was beginning to drop out of hyperspace. Not all at once, but in carefully coordinated groups. The first ships to appear were unlike anything Min-Ho had ever seen. They were huge, easily 10 times the size of his largest warship. Their hulls were dark and angular, covered with weapons that looked like they could crack planets in half. More ships appeared, hundreds of them, then thousands. They arranged themselves in a formation that stretched across several star systems, moving with precision that spoke of centuries of military discipline. "Sir," He-In said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Final count. 10,473 vessels. All of them appear to be military ships." Min-Ho stared at the display screen, watching as the human colonial fleet took position around his small patrol group. They were not threatening his ships directly, but the message was clear. The humans could destroy his entire fleet without effort if they chose to. "Admiral Jun-Suk," Min-Ho said into the communication system. "Your fleet size violates several galactic treaties. The Council will want to negotiate." The response came with what sounded like laughter. "Captain Min-Ho, your Council had 500 years to negotiate with us. They chose not to. Now we will negotiate from a position of strength." The human fleet began to move again, flowing around Min-Ho's patrol ships like water around stones. They were heading toward the core systems, toward the heart of galactic civilization. Min-Ho watched them go, knowing that everything was about to change. The myths had become real, and they had brought an armada that could reshape the galaxy. The humans were coming home, and they were not asking for permission. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began before dawn on Nexus Prime. Representatives from all 3 species rushed to the crystal towers, their faces showing fear and confusion. The reports coming in from the Rim were impossible to believe, but they kept coming from reliable sources. Hyunwoo arrived first, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. He had not slept since receiving Captain Min-Ho's transmission. The Vellani collective consciousness was buzzing with panic as psychics across the galaxy reported sensing alien minds moving toward the core worlds. Counselor Bora came next, her 6 arms working frantically on portable computers. Data streams flowed directly into her brain through silver wires, and her red mechanical eyes flickered as she processed thousands of reports simultaneously. The Corvex communication networks were overloaded with sensor data from across the galaxy. General Tae-Min was the last to arrive, his massive frame filling the doorway as he entered the council chamber. His brown scales were darker than usual, a sign of stress in Thurok physiology. Military reports had been flooding his command centers all night, and none of them brought good news. 10,000 ships, Bora said without preamble, her mechanical voice crackling with static. "Minimum. Possibly more. Energy signatures completely unknown. Technology that makes our best warships look like children's toys." Hyunwoo activated the central display, showing the tactical information gathered from border stations. The human fleet was represented by thousands of red dots moving steadily toward the inner systems. Their formation was perfect, their speed was constant, and their course was unchanging. "They are heading directly for Sol System," Hyunwoo said quietly. "The star system mentioned in the ancient records, their original home." General Tae-Min studied the display with professional interest. "Their formation is excellent. Whoever trained them knows military tactics. But where have they been for 500 years? How did they build such a large fleet without anyone noticing?" The real question, Bora said, is what they want. Captain Minho reported that their admiral mentioned returning home, but Sol's system has been a Corvex research station for 3 centuries. We have mining operations throughout that sector. Hyunwoo closed his large black eyes and reached out with his psychic abilities. Across the galaxy, other Vallani were doing the same thing, trying to make contact with the approaching fleet. What they found was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Their minds are strange, Hyunwoo said slowly. Individual thoughts, but connected somehow. They think together but maintain separate personalities, and their emotions. He paused, struggling to find words. They are very angry. Angry about what? Taemin asked. Before Hyunwoo could answer, the communication system activated. A new voice filled the chamber, speaking in accented Galactic, standard with the same strange pronunciation they had heard from Admiral Jun-suk. Galactic Council, the voice said. This is Fleet Admiral Su-jin of the Human Colonial Expeditionary Force. We request immediate diplomatic contact. The 3 delegates looked at each other in surprise. They had expected demands or threats, not a polite request for talks. This is Ambassador Hyunwoo of the Vallani delegation, Hyunwoo replied. We are willing to open diplomatic channels. Excellent, Admiral Su-jin said. Please prepare to receive our representative. She will arrive at Nexus Prime in 6 hours. The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. 6 hours? Bora said, her red eyes flickering with calculation. Their nearest ships are 2 days away at maximum speed. How can they get someone here in 6 hours? They found out soon enough. A small ship appeared in orbit around Nexus Prime without any warning. The space traffic control systems had no record of its approach. It had simply materialized above the planet like it had teleported from across the galaxy. The ship that landed at the Council spaceport was like nothing anyone had ever seen. It was small but elegant, with curves and angles that seemed to flow together naturally. The hull was made of a dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The human who stepped out of the ship was equally surprising. She was tall but not giant, with pale skin and dark hair that grew from the top of her head. She wore a simple uniform of blue and gray fabric, with no visible weapons or armor. To the 3 species who were used to scales, computer implants, and psychic abilities, she looked impossibly fragile. But when she walked into the council chamber, everything changed. Her name was Commander Yuri, and she carried herself with confidence that filled the room. Her eyes were small and dark, but they seemed to see everything at once. When she spoke, her voice was calm and controlled. But there was something underneath it that made even General Taemin nervous. 500 years ago, Yuri said without introduction, humanity reached for the stars. We built ships, established colonies, and tried to join the galactic community. We were denied. She activated a small device, and holographic images filled the chamber. They showed human ships being turned away from trade stations, human colonies being blockaded by alien fleets, human requests for diplomatic recognition being ignored or rejected. We were told we were too primitive, Yuri continued. Too violent, too unpredictable. Your 3 species had divided the galaxy among yourselves, and there was no room for a 4th. Bora's mechanical fingers clicked nervously. Those decisions were made centuries ago. The current council had nothing to do with them. Yuri smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Of course not. But the consequences of those decisions are here now. New images appeared. They showed human fleets disappearing into the dark, spaces between stars, charts of regions marked as uninhabitable or impossible to navigate. Star systems where the three species had never bothered to explore because they were too dangerous. We did not die out, Yuri said. We adapted. We learned to live in places you thought were impossible. We built cities near black holes, harvested energy from neutron stars, and established colonies in the gravitational storms you feared to enter. General Tae-min leaned forward. Impossible. No species could survive in those environments. No known species, Yuri corrected. But humans are very good at learning new ways to survive. We had 500 years to practice. The implications were staggering. While the three species had fought over habitable worlds and trade routes, humanity had claimed the most dangerous regions of the galaxy. They had not just survived in environments that would kill other beings. They had thrived. What do you want? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Yuri's expression became serious. We want what we should have had 5 centuries ago: recognition, territory, reparations for centuries of exile, and we want our home back. Sol system belongs to the Korvax now, Bora said. We have established research facilities and mining operations. Moving them would cost billions of credits. Then you will lose. Billions of credits, Yuri said simply. Earth is not negotiable. The council chamber fell silent. The three species had never faced a demand they could not meet with diplomacy or force. But the human fleet waiting at the edge of their territory was unlike anything they had ever encountered. And, if we refuse? General Tae-min asked. Yuri stood up, her small frame somehow seeming to fill the entire room. Then you will learn why humanity spent 500 years preparing for this moment. We did not come back to ask for permission, council members. We came back to take what is ours. She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. You have 72 hours to begin evacuation of Sol system. After that, we will remove your people ourselves. I recommend you use the time wisely. Commander Yuri left the council chamber, and her ship disappeared from orbit as mysteriously as it had arrived. The three delegates stared at each other, realizing that their galaxy had just changed forever. The humans were no longer myths. They were real, they were powerful, and they were coming home whether the galaxy liked it or not. The human fleet stopped at the edge of Sol's system, but they did not hide. Thousands of ships arranged themselves in perfect formations, their dark hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun. They waited with the patience of people who had spent centuries planning for this moment. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council faced an impossible decision. The combined fleet of all three species could muster maybe 3,000 ships. The humans had brought more than 10,000, and intelligence reports suggested these were not even their main forces. Ambassador Hyunwoo requested a meeting with the human commanders. To his surprise, they agreed immediately. A shuttle arrived at the Nexus Prime spaceport, and Hyunwoo found himself traveling to the human flagship. The journey took 6 hours, but it felt like minutes. The human ship moved through space in ways that defied physics. It seemed to slip between dimensions, taking shortcuts through reality that the three species had never imagined possible. The flagship was called the New Horizon, and it was the size of a small moon. When Hyunwoo's shuttle entered the docking bay, he saw hundreds of smaller ships being serviced by crews of humans working in perfect coordination. They moved with efficiency that reminded him of Korvax technology, but without the mechanical coldness. Fleet Commander Wanbin met Hyunwoo at the airlock. He was older than the other humans Hyunwoo had seen, with gray hair and lines around, his eyes that spoke of many years in space. He wore the same simple uniform as Commander Yuri, but his carried more rank insignia. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador," Wanbin said in perfect galactic standard. "I am sorry we have not had time for proper introductions, but I think it is important that you understand what humanity has become." Wanbin led Hyunwoo through corridors filled with humans of all ages. They nodded respectfully as the fleet commander passed, but their eyes studied the Villani visitor with curiosity rather than hostility. These were not the eyes of conquerors, Hyunwoo realized. They were the eyes of people coming home. 500 years ago, Wanbin said as they walked, humanity made first contact with your three species. We were excited. We thought we would join a galactic community and share knowledge with other intelligent beings. They entered a large observation deck that looked out at Earth. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel, but Hyunwoo could see the artificial structures that the Corvex had built on its surface. Cities of metal and glass where human cities had once stood. "We were naive," Wanbin continued. "We thought intelligence meant wisdom. We thought civilization meant cooperation. We were wrong." Dr. Yoonji joined them on the observation deck. She was younger than Wanbin, with the same dark hair as Commander Yuri. But her uniform carried the insignia of a scientist rather than a military officer. "When the three species rejected us," Yoonji said, "we had a choice. We could fight for our place in their galaxy, or we could make our own place somewhere else. You chose exile," Hyunwoo said. "We chose evolution," Wanbin corrected. "The three species had divided the comfortable parts of the galaxy among themselves. So we took the uncomfortable parts." Yoonji activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from a new perspective. Instead of the familiar trade routes and habitable systems, it showed the dark spaces between stars, the regions where gravitational storms raged and space itself was unstable. "We built our first colonies near neutron stars," Yoonji explained. "The radiation would have killed any other species in minutes, but humans can adapt. We developed new technologies, new ways of living, new ways of thinking." The display showed human cities that existed in impossible places, orbital stations that harvested energy directly from black holes, mining platforms that operated in the hearts of dying stars, colony ships that surfed gravitational waves across vast distances. "We learned to live in environments that your three species consider uninhabitable," Wanbin said. "We did not just survive, we thrived, and while we learned, we also grew stronger." Hyunwoo felt a chill as he realized what they were telling him. Humanity had not spent 5 centuries hiding in exile. They had spent 5 centuries becoming something beyond the understanding of the 3 known species. "Show him the soldiers," Wanbin said to Yoonji. They took Hyunwoo to another part of the ship, where human military units were training. But these were not the fragile beings from the ancient records. These humans had been enhanced to survive in the harshest environments the galaxy could offer. Some could function in gravity fields that would crush Thurok bones. Others could survive radiation levels that would fry Corvex computer implants. All of them could think and fight in ways that seemed impossible. "We did not have the luxury of safe worlds," Wanbin explained. "Every human colony faced challenges that would destroy normal civilizations. So we stopped being normal." They returned to the observation deck, where Earth continued to hang in space like a stolen prize. Hyunwoo could see Corvex ships orbiting the planet, but they looked tiny and primitive compared to the human fleet. "What do you want from us?" Hyunwoo asked. Justice, Wonbin said simply. 500 years ago, you denied us our place in the galaxy. You took our home world and turned it into a research station. You forced us to become something we never wanted to be. And what is that? Wonbin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Conquerors. We came to the stars as explorers and traders. You made us into something much more dangerous. Yoonji activated another display, showing the true size of human civilization. The dark regions of the galaxy were filled with human colonies, mining operations, and military bases. Millions of ships, billions of people. An entire civilization that had grown in the shadows while the three species fought over scraps. We do not want to destroy you, Wonbin said, but we will not be denied again. Sol system belongs to humanity. Earth belongs to humanity. If you try to stop us from reclaiming our home, you will learn what 5 centuries of preparation can accomplish. Hyunwoo felt the thoughts and emotions of the human crew around him. There was anger, yes, but also sadness and determination. These people had spent their entire lives in exile, dreaming of a world they had never seen but still called home. The Council will never agree to simply abandon Sol System, Hyunwoo said. Then the Council will learn why it was a mistake to underestimate humanity, Wonbin replied. We have spent 500 years becoming the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We did not want this role, but we have accepted it. The meeting ended with Hyunwoo returning to Nexus Prime carrying an ultimatum. The humans would begin reclamation of Sol System in 24 hours. Any resistance would be met with force that the galaxy had never seen. As his shuttle flew away from the New Horizon, Hyunwoo looked back at the human fleet. They were not myths anymore. They were not the primitive species from the ancient records. They were something new, something that had been forged in the dark spaces between stars. They were coming home, and nothing in the galaxy was powerful enough to stop them. The 3 species had created their own worst nightmare. They had taken a curious, peaceful species and turned them into masters of warfare and survival. Now they would face the consequences of that choice. Humanity had learned what it meant to be alone in a hostile universe. Soon, the rest of the galaxy would learn what it meant to face humanity when they were no longer alone. The human fleet moved into Sol System like a force of nature. There was no dramatic battle, no desperate last stand. The Corvex research stations and mining platforms simply found themselves surrounded by ships that could have erased them from existence with a thought. Admiral Tae-ho commanded the vanguard, leading 1,000 human vessels toward Earth. His ship, the Homecoming, was smaller than the flagship, but no less impressive. It moved through space like a living thing, bending reality around itself to achieve impossible speeds. The Corvex facilities on Earth had 3 hours to evacuate. It was not enough time to save everything, but the humans made it clear that they were not interested in destroying Corvex property. They simply wanted it moved. Dr. Bora watched from her command ship as human vessels approached each installation. Instead of weapons, they deployed devices that seemed to bend space itself. Entire cities were lifted from Earth's surface and transported to waiting cargo ships. Not destroyed, not damaged, just moved. How are they doing this? Bora asked her science officer. Unknown technology, came the reply. They appear to be manipulating gravitational fields at the quantum level. Our sensors cannot even detect the energy source. The Corvex had spent 3 centuries turning Earth into a research world. They had built cities in the places where ancient Human settlements had once stood. They had studied the planet's ecology and harvested its resources. All of that work was being undone in a matter of hours, but the humans were not cruel about it. They moved the Corvex installations to other worlds in the system. They provided transportation for personnel who could not evacuate quickly enough. They even helped transfer valuable research data to Corvex ships. They are not acting like conquerors, Bora observed. No, her science officer agreed. They are acting like people moving back into their own house. The real demonstration of human power came when the combined fleet arrived. General Taemin had gathered every warship the three species could muster. 3,000 vessels representing the military might of galactic civilization. It was an impressive force that could have conquered most star systems. It was nothing compared to what the humans had brought. As the combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, they found the human fleet waiting for them. But the formation the humans had taken was unlike anything any military tactician had ever seen. 10,000 ships arranged in a three-dimensional pattern that hurt to look at. The vessels were positioned in mathematical relationships that seemed to bend space around them. Energy flowed between the ships in streams of light that connected them into a single massive weapon. Captain Subin's voice came over the communication channels, speaking to the combined fleet with calm authority. She was young for a human commander, but her words carried the weight of 5 centuries of preparation. "Combined fleet of the Galactic Council," Subin said. "You are witnessing the result of 500 years of human development. We call this formation the stellar mandala. It channels the energy of Sol itself into a focused beam capable of reshaping matter at the atomic level. To demonstrate, the human fleet turned their formation toward a small asteroid at the edge of the system. The energy beam that emerged from the center of their formation was invisible to normal sensors, but its effects were immediately apparent. The asteroid did not explode or melt. It simply changed. In the space of seconds, it transformed from a lifeless rock into a perfect sphere of crystallized metal. The humans had demonstrated the power to remake matter itself according to their will. "This is not a weapon of destruction," Subin continued. "It is a tool of creation. We have spent 5 centuries learning to build rather than destroy. But it can be used either way." General Taemin stared at the sensor readings, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. The energy levels involved were beyond anything the 3 species had ever achieved. The precision required was impossible by any known technology. "How?" he transmitted to the human fleet. 500 years of necessity," Subin replied. "When you forced us to live in impossible places, we learned to do impossible things. When you denied us the comfort of safe worlds, we learned to make any world safe. When you rejected us as primitive, we became something beyond your understanding." The demonstration continued. The human fleet showed how they could move asteroids, redirect comets, and even adjust the orbit of small moons. They had become masters of space itself, capable of reshaping entire star systems according to their needs. Ambassador Hyunwoo, observing from the combined fleet, felt the collective consciousness of humanity through his psychic abilities. What he sensed made him understand the true scope of what had happened. "They are not just a military force," he reported to the other delegates. "They are a civilization that has learned to think as one while maintaining individual identity. Every human in that fleet is connected to every other human in ways we cannot comprehend." The final act came when the human fleet moved toward Earth itself. The planet had been scarred by centuries of Corvex development, its natural beauty hidden under layers of metal and concrete. But as the human ships took position around their homeworld, something extraordinary happened. Streams of energy flowed from the fleet to the planet's surface. Where the energy touched, the artificial structures began to change. Corvex cities transformed into gardens. Mining scars became lakes and forests. The atmosphere itself was cleansed of pollutants in a matter of hours. They are not just reclaiming their world, Dr. Yunji explained to the watching galaxy. They are healing it. This is what humanity learned in the dark between stars. How to make life flourish in places where it should not exist. Earth blossomed under human care like a flower opening to sunlight. In less than a day, it transformed from an industrial research world back into the blue and green jewel it had been before humanity first reached for the stars. The message was clear to everyone watching. Humanity had not returned as destroyers or conquerors. They had returned as gardeners, as builders, as creators of life and beauty. But they also possessed the power to unmake anything that stood in their way. Captain Subin's final transmission went out to every world in the galaxy. For 500 years, humanity has waited in exile. We have grown strong in the dark places you feared to enter. We have learned to survive where life should not exist. We have become something new, something that your myths could never have imagined. Now we offer you a choice. Accept us as equals in this galaxy we all share. Grant us the territories and recognition that should have been ours centuries ago. Work with us to build something better than the division and conflict that has defined galactic civilization. Or continue to oppose us and learn why it was a mistake to force humanity to become masters of the impossible. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a new reality. The myths had become truth, but the truth was stranger and more wonderful than any legend. Humanity had returned not as the primitive species the three civilizations remembered, but as something that transcended the limitations of normal life. They had spent 5 centuries becoming the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen, and they were offering to share that advancement with the species that had once rejected them. The age of human expansion had begun, but it would not be an age of conquest. It would be an age of transformation, where the impossible became routine, and the galaxy itself would be remade in ways no one could predict. The humans were home, and they had brought wonders beyond imagination with them.